In Matthew 16:13, Jesus asks his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." "But what about you?" Jesus asked. "Who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." You have to answer the same question for yourself. Who do you say Jesus is? And today I want to give you some evidences for why Jesus is God. First of all, some people will try and say that Jesus was just a good person, just a good teacher who lived a good moral life. But C.S. Lewis presents the argument that Jesus himself claimed to be God. And I attached the link in the video description to my lesson plan when I taught this in Sunday school, and that has more information, including some places in the Bible where Jesus claimed to be God. And so C.S. Lewis says, okay, Jesus claimed to be God. So you're left with only a few options. Either Jesus claimed to be God and he knew he wasn't God, or Jesus claimed to be God and he was God. If Jesus claimed to be God and he wasn't God, either he thought he was God, or he knew he wasn't God. So either way, you either have, if Jesus claimed to be God and he knew he wasn't, then he was a liar. If Jesus claimed to be God and he thought he was, but he wasn't, then he was a lunatic. If Jesus claimed to be God and he was God, then he is Lord. So you only have three options. Either Jesus is a liar, a lunatic, or he is Lord. He's not just a good moral person. Secondly, Jesus fulfilled a ton of prophecy in his lifetime, prophecy that was written 700 years before he was born. And in the lesson plan that is in the link the link to it is in the video description. I have some scriptures there that show some prophecies in the Bible that Jesus fulfilled, and they were written over 700 years before he was born. Prophecies like where he would be born in Bethlehem, prophecies of what family line he would come from, how he would die, that the soldiers at the cross would cast lots for his clothing, and even the price that Judas paid to betray him, the money he received, the 30 silver coins. That's very specific prophecies. Over 100 years before he was born, he had no control over those things. You can't control where you're born, what family line you come from, or how much someone will be paid to betray you. But Jesus fulfilled those things. And Dr. Peter Stoner and some of his students did a study to see if just 8 of the Old Testament prophecies, what the odds would be for one person fulfilling all 8 of those. And they found that it was 1 in 100 million billion, which is 1 with 17 zeros after it. Those are really high chances, really low chances that that would be possible. High odds, just ridiculous. But Jesus fulfilled those because he is what they prophesied about. He is the Messiah, the Son of God. And then, most importantly, Jesus rose from the dead. The disciples, they proclaimed that Jesus was risen, that he had rose from the dead, and they proclaimed it to people who could have easily proved them wrong. Peter, when he's preaching in Acts 2, he says, "Men of Israel, hear these words. Jesus of Nazareth, a man attested by God to you by miracles, wonders, and signs, which God did through him in your midst. As you yourselves know, God has raised this Jesus to life, and we are all witnesses of it." Now, if Peter preached this to a crowd that had witnessed Jesus' life, and he's saying, and you all have witnessed his resurrection. If he was preaching this to a crowd where they knew that Jesus was still dead and in that tomb, no one would have responded to his message. They would have called him a liar and a heretic. But instead, we see an overwhelming amount of people coming to believe in Jesus Christ as their Savior. And we looked at last week how the Bible is biblically accurate. So if this is an accurate account of what happened. In 1 Corinthians 15, 3-8, Paul writes this: After Jesus' resurrection, he appeared to more than 500 of the brothers and sisters at the same time, most of whom are still living, though some have fallen asleep. Paul is saying, most of whom are still living, he's saying, hey, there are some people who witnessed Jesus after his death. They witnessed his resurrection. 500 witnesses. And these aren't people who are dead. Most of them are still alive. You can go check it out for yourself. You can go see and follow the witnesses and the accounts. You can follow the evidence and the information that Jesus really is the risen Lord, that he really did rise from the dead. And Peter and Paul both were proclaiming Jesus' resurrection to people who would have loved to have proved them wrong. But instead, the only thing that they could do was pay off the guards to say that the disciples came and stole Jesus' body. Now, is that a possibility? Could the disciples have came and stolen Jesus' body? Well, let's say that the disciples did, that they made up the resurrection. This was all fabricated. All of them were martyred for their faith. All of them died proclaiming that Jesus was risen, that he was God. How many of you would risk your life for something that was going to get you killed? Like, let's say if someone you're on death row and they say, hey, if you just tell us the truth, we'll let you live. And no consequences. I would tell them the truth. But these are people who died because they believed so strongly that Jesus was the risen Lord. They believed in his resurrection. These are people who had been locked behind doors after Jesus' death and were scared and timid. But then we see these disciples radically changed, and they have this boldness because they know that Jesus rose from the dead, and they went to their graves proclaiming that. No one dies for what they know is a lie. These disciples knew it was the truth. And you can too. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and put that in the comment and I will reply to you. Or if you have heard some arguments that for why Jesus is God or for why he rose from the dead, things like that, feel free to share those in the comments so other people can learn from that too. And then until then, I will see you next week and we will be talking about maturity. So if you want to hear that and keep on joining with me, go ahead and subscribe to KMBC's YouTube channel, and you can even click on the bell and make sure your notifications are turned on and you'll get notified when next week's video comes out. And until then, I will see you next week.